Welcome back to the channel, everyone. In today's video, I want to go over the advantages and disadvantages of owning a jailbroken PS5 2025. If you're someone new who's looking to get into the jailbreak scene and acquire a jailbroken console, this video will explain what you need to look out for as far as having a jailbroken PlayStation 5 in 2025. Many of times, people buy a jailbroken console and they're not too sure what they can do on it. With that being said, let's go over my top picks for the advantages and disadvantages of owning a jailbroken PS5. One of the main advantages of owning a jailbroken PS5, you have exposure to a large library of games. Currently, we have majority of the PS4 titles available for you to play, and you also have a few titles from PS5 to play. Now, currently, when it comes to PS5 games, it's still in the early stages. As time progresses, you will get more exposure to those games, and you'll be able to play them either on 5.x, 6.x, or 7.x. But currently, it's one of those issues where it's very limited on what games you can play on PlayStation 5. However, for PS4, you have majority of the catalog available to you, and you guys can enjoy those games. The second advantages that you have with owning a jailbroken PS5, you have exposure to DLC content. Now, currently, when you go and buy a pre-order game, it typically comes in three versions: a standard, a deluxe, or ultimate. You get DLC content that may not be available as a standalone item for you to purchase, and you can only get it as a pre-order. With owning a jailbroken PS5, you still have exposure to that content free of charge. So you don't have to worry if you didn't make that purchase at that time to get that content. I would also say for PS4, you also have DLC content available for you to use on your PS5. Now, moving on from that, the third advantages of owning a jailbroken PS5, you get exposure to homebrew apps. If you ever had a jailbroken PS4 and you've been on the PS homebrew store, you know there's a wide variety of utility apps that will increase the functionality of the console. The same concept applies for PS5. Unfortunately, at this time, there's not that many utility apps available to us to use on our console, but the same devs who made the utility apps for PlayStation 4 are also migrating the same apps over to PS5. So as time goes on, we should see a wide variety of homebrew apps available to us to use on our console. There are so many apps that you can use, such as temperature apps, file transfer apps, emulators, the list goes on, that will come to PS5, but just at a later time. Now, my last and final advantages of owning a jailbroken PS5, you guys get exposure to mods and trainers. Just like PlayStation 3 and PlayStation 4, there are trainers available for PlayStation 5. However, it all depends on the game that you're playing. Not all games for PlayStation 5 that have a trainer, but majority of the games for PlayStation 4 do have trainers / mods. With that being said, the Apollo tool is slowly being integrated for PlayStation 5. Again, we definitely want to be able to resign saves to our profile. We also want to be able to have exposure to new cheats, especially for PlayStation 5. Right now, the PS5 library is not that big. Any game that you get a trainer for, you're lucky. But definitely as time progresses, we are going to see more and more trainers for PS5 games exclusively. Now, let's discuss the disadvantages of owning a jailbroken PS5. The very first thing that tops the list is no access to PSN. If you're someone who needs to go online and access multiplayer, on a jailbroken PS5, you will not have that feature. My recommendation is to get a second console. By having a second console, you can do that. As far as your jailbreak is concerned, you will lose that feature if you decide to update your console to the latest firmware, simply just to access the PlayStation Network. For my second disadvantage of owning jailbroken PS5 would be game compatibility issues. Typically, when a new title releases on a higher firmware such as 9.x and 10.x, and you're looking to access that title on a lower firmware, you are going to run into game compatibility issues. And the number one thing for us to rely on currently in 2025 to access that title is backporting. A lot of times backporting is not guaranteed, anywhere 2 months, 3 months, if not longer, to access that new title. If you're someone who's looking to access that title immediately and you're on a jailbroken PS5, my best recommendation is to see if that title is available for PS4. If it is available for PS4, then you would have access to that title. And as far as the PlayStation 5 version, you are going to have to wait patiently until it does become available on a lower firmware. At that point, yes, you'll be able to then access the PS5 version of the game. My last and final disadvantages of owning jailbroken PS5 in 2025, and that is being at risk of being console banned. A lot of people overlook this situation until it happens to them. Some people decide at a later time, the console that they purchased, they want to take it online. What they normally would do, remove all of the homebrew from the console, and then they will update the console to the latest system software to access PSN. What they fail to realize is that there is a specific file on your PS5 or PS4 that Sony has that will tell them the history of the console. So if you have any homebrew that was once in the past on that console, even though you removed it, that file and that history is still there. In order to get past the console ban, you need to clear the history of your console so that Sony cannot see what you had in the past console. If you do not do this, you put yourself at risk, console ban, and no matter what you do, who you call, and what you say, Sony will not unban that console. And at that point, you will need to buy a brand new console to access the PSN, play any game online. But these are my advantages and disadvantages owning a jailbroken PS5 in 2025. If you guys like this video, leave a comment. But as always, I thank you guys for watching my video and supporting my channel, and I will get up with you guys later. Peace.